Welcome to Old School. Cenk, Ben Makers, Mark Thompson, everybody. All right, look at that, the edge with Mark Thompson. I feel like this podcast all of a sudden has an edge.
Nice.
Yeah. So as always, Old School brought to you by two kind of sponsors. Too Strong Coffee, TooStrongCoffee.com/TYT. It's the only coffee I drink without cream, and it's delicious without cream because it's delicious coffee.
Every week you say something that no one else has ever said. Like,
right?
Like no one advertises coffee by saying it's terrific even without cream, because that's an acknowledgement that coffee's terrible, right? Right. The coffee's better in its innate state, in its intended state. Excuse me, in its intended state that it's largely undrinkable. I don't agree with that, but that would be what the Madison Avenue types would say. Like, don't say it's good enough to drink without cream. No one would ever say that.
Yeah,
I have actually, if I can weigh in, I have just the opposite view. I actually thought that was a clever take on it, because typically people do cut their coffee with cream. By far, more people drink coffee with some kind of added cream or soy creamer or nut milk or oat milk or whatever now. And they put sugar in, and they turn it into their own little special chemical mix of stuff. And so to say no, but this coffee you don't want to cut with anything. It's that good.
Well, Mark, of course, obviously you didn't let a person finish. You had to get your point in, and I understand that. That's sort of
That's my bully.
No, actually, as I was saying it, I was like, no one would ever say it, right? It's never said, but of course, it's instantly right. Would be people would acknowledge, people would hear it because of exactly why you say it's actually fairly effective.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. So first of all, let's just acknowledge that I'm not overly sophisticated, period. Let alone an overly sophisticated coffee drinker. But so that's why I'm like, well, who'd be crazy enough not to put cream in their coffee to make it taste better? But with Too Strong, I was like, wait a minute, this is really good without the cream. So go to TooStrongCoffee.com/TYT so you can go, wait a minute. Also an ad no one's ever done before. Okay, so we're back in the studio. We do all of our shows there. PS, by the way, and it probably will be a PS. God knows how long it'll take to get to it. But in this show, I'm going to tell a story about how that involves Instagram and creepiness, and it's a story I probably shouldn't tell. So you have that to look forward to. Okay. So all the Democratic establishment note takers, get ready. Okay. So. Anyways, but the one show we still do from home is Old School, because it's hard to get everybody in the studio. Blah, 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 nobody cares. But we do it here. But it's like my family's forgotten every part of doing shows from home etiquette. So the minute Old School starts, my son goes to do practice on the piano, dun 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 dun, right? And somebody just ran the printer. Cue Joy knocking on one of these doors any second now. Did you guys hear it?
That was great. That was great.
Sick.
Yeah, that was scripted. That was scripted.
For real. Yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah.
We definitely. Okay, no, Joy, I'm in the middle of a show. You gotta go. Okay, close the door. Don't print anything else.
Oh, we already.
No, shh, go away. Okay.
This is what the kids tune in for.
Okay, so also, by the way, brought to you by shoptyt.com. That story also involves the kids. We have a Legalize shirt, and I was gonna wear it, and I was like, wait, is this inappropriate to wear around the kids? And then I was like, oh, first of all, we're in California, we already legalized it, so I guess by definition, not inappropriate. Second of all, I believe in marijuana. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. So I was like, oh yeah, and I wore it proudly all around the house.
Yeah, that's a shame. Why do you think the feds still? Now you've got Democrats everywhere. If assuming it's a Republican Democrat thing, why are the feds so slow and maybe never attendees at the marijuana party?
So you're going to get into a massive Biden political thing, and sure, let's do it. And then I want to come back to condiments, obviously. Come back to as if we started on condiments. Anyways, so look, Biden is a couple of things. I just did an interview with Daily Beast reporter about this too. Number one, he's just. I think the most important thing is that he's just stuck in the past. And it's very, very hard for him to adjust. And so he just thinks like drugs, that's gotta be radical. I mean, I don't want to do that in the beginning. I mean, if you're gonna do that, maybe you do that at the end after you've built up some, credibility and some good, ratings, et cetera, and approval numbers. But if you just do legalizing marijuana or taking it off of Schedule I right out of the gate, I mean, I'm sure that Biden thinks that's largely radical. Right, and will be perceived as radical. When in reality, of course, he hasn't caught up to the country. Well over 2/3 of Americans think it should be legalized everywhere, and it's not at all radical. In fact, it's radical and stupid not to legalize it.
Well, let me just jump in and say that these are people. First of all, I think that it's more institutional than Biden. Right, that there's just the behemoth that is the federal government has operated in a specific way for 60 years about marijuana, and so I think Cenk's right. It's very hard to change. And then Biden is not a guy who doesn't understand the dangers of drugs and drug abuse and what it can do to a family. And so I don't say that as to say that he's wrong on it. Right, I agree, but I just, if you were looking for a guy to come in there and make some bold moves there, it might not have been the right dad.
Yeah, so look, as we all know, of course, marijuana is not a gateway drug, but it's easy to say, not as easy to think, if you had a son who had an addiction issue, et cetera, and you're from the old school. So Mark, normally this is when I would talk about corruption, and there's definitely some of that with marijuana. There's 3 different industries that contribute to politicians to make sure that marijuana doesn't get legalized: alcohol, private prisons, but most importantly, those 2 really wouldn't do it. They're not big enough in terms of political donors. But big pharma, of course. So the drug companies think, well, that thing's really cheap and really shockingly, amazingly effective. And if you take that thing, you might not have to take our really expensive things. So they're a bigger donor and a bigger factor in politics. But all that notwithstanding, I actually think this is mainly Biden's old hangups, and for illegitimate, as Ben pointed out. Well, not legitimate point of view, but like an understandable point of view that he has. And
right, it informs his narrative. I get it.
But I mean, it's not just. I mean, keep in mind, it's not just Biden. I mean, it was Obama before Biden. I mean, this is just. It is, and even if you think it, getting the, it's obviously not as simple as coming in and. I mean, it I suppose is in the sense that you're the president, you could do it, but it doesn't work the way that you can just come in and say it, and the whole apparatus that is the federal government acquiesces and moves. There's just resistance. You could do it, but there is resistance, and then there's resistance from people who you need help on other issues, and you find that getting stuff done is much harder. And I think it's very safe to say that for Biden, even if he could be persuaded, it certainly doesn't feel like a big priority. Although since he's not going to cancel student debt, he might want to make up some of that ground politically.
On that point, on the dollars and cents of it, I mean, sadly, so much of the institution to which you refer is associated with, drug enforcement dollars that are directed toward marijuana enforcement. So it's a colossal waste of money. I mean, you see it with, offshore interdiction. You see it with every sort of border interdiction. It's pathetic. I mean, it's pathetic because of, let's leave the issues around marijuana aside, because of the colossal waste of money. And so then you get to the student debt cancellation and these other things that demand dollars and cents that's being directed to, again, this total waste. I think hey, I don't get high. But I'm a passionate believer that this is way overdue. I don't understand. The expiration date on this was long ago.
Right. It was the early 20th, 21st century at the latest. Yeah.
Yeah, but Democrats also make it more complicated than it is, right? So Ben is right in the logistics for sure. So if you're gonna take it off of Schedule 1, then you have to think through how's that gonna affect ATF, alcohol, tobacco, firearms, right? A DEA, how's it gonna affect all of these different agencies? What new edicts are they gonna have, et cetera. Now, having said all that, that's gonna take some time. I would, if let's go with the fun hypothetical that we do from time to time. If I was president, give him 3 months and then up and at him, guys. I mean, you get 3 months is plenty of time to write a report and figure out how to do it, right? And then I would take it off the Schedule 1, and then whatever executive power I had to legalize it, I would use. And then people go, oh, I can't believe you did that. And most people would say, oh, yeah, that was obvious. And then you'd be done with it. And you could never reverse it. Who's gonna reverse a policy that an overwhelming majority of Americans agree with? It doesn't make any sense. And so at the end of the day, yes, logistically, there's definitely some hurdles, but it's not that hard.
Well, and as you say, this has been percolating for decades now. Percolating, by the way, for decades longer than, for example, Clinton's "don't ask, don't tell" becomes gays in the military. I mean, in other words, there were real breakthroughs in the military with gay enlistees, with trans enlistees, in other words, they broke barriers that didn't have nearly the percolation that the marijuana conversation has had over the decades. And I have no doubt that these institutions to which you're right. I mean, there are these institutional barriers, but they would fall on the timetable that you suggest. And they ought to fall. It's just enough already.
I don't think they'd fall on the timetable you suggest, but that doesn't matter. They should have done it. He should do it. It should be done. But the issue to me is really clearly, if you just straight politics, I mean, it's making an assessment that whatever damage, that the repercussions of doing it aren't worth it given the level of support. Right, I mean, that's what it is. It's not like I'm die hard, I'm gonna keep marijuana. Like they're obviously, the belief must be that would do significant damage to the relationship with law enforcement, right? And what that would mean. And I hear you, but I just imagine that because so it's now obviously you ran on it, sort of, right? It was one of the things you sort of ran on, so you should do it because it's enormously popular, right? But it is the problem is that when we create precedents, right? And the precedent we've created is a policing policy in which drug interdiction is a huge part and a huge piece of the financial pie, and then to undo that precedent is incredibly hard. That's the problem with almost every mistake we've made in this country is that we sit around here and talk like, well, just stop doing it, right? I mean, because obviously you should stop doing it. And we're not, by the way, saying that you could legalize it, although we all think you should, and it seems inevitable as state after state does it. But just removing it from Schedule 1, it seems so obvious. And so therefore, the reason not to do it to me is equally obvious. That's not a defense of it. That just means it's staring at us in the faces that it's too hard to unwind, or it's hard to unwind and not worth it politically.
You guys are making me get into politics. Okay, yeah, no, I can't help it. I gotta say, no, it reeks of weakness. And although I don't think I didn't notice the Mark's percolating bong reference, I get it.
I thought that to me that was just another coffee reference.
I thought it was a too strong coffee reference. Yeah, I thought you'd appreciate it on that level.
Yeah.
Well, if you think we're not going to eventually do too strong weed, you are wrong. But seriously, look. So Max Burns, the guy who wrote the column on Daily Basis that I interviewed today, you guys will see it on Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, and like he has a simple column, very, very, very simple. If Manchin and Sinema keep saying that they can do bipartisanship, great. Show us 10 senators. Show us 10 Republican senators on almost any bill at all, but certainly on voting rights, because that's what's up first and what you're saying you can get bipartisanship for. Otherwise, shut up, right? And so, but Max saying it on Daily Beast is irrelevant. Us saying it on TYT is irrelevant. What would be relevant is if Joe Biden did a press conference and said, My good friend Joe Manchin keeps saying he's gonna get bipartisanship, and I would love it. And I remember the days when we had it, and I ran on it because I really, really wanted. That's why I waited all this time. But the reality is, he's never gonna get 10 Republican senators on anything. So and I'm challenging him right now. You've got naming 2 weeks, a month, whatever, it doesn't matter, right? Go get 10 Republicans on HR 1, and don't come and tell me, oh, you did HR 1 because you passed 1 out of 12 provisions, right? But get me something, okay, you want to compromise, whatever. It does get me something with 10 Republican senators on it. Otherwise, Joe Manchin, it'll become obvious to the whole country that you're the one blocking progress. And he would never do that. And if he wants to pass anything, he must do that. There is no other way to pass it. He's gonna play patty cakes with Joe Manchin until his term is over. And by the way, right now, his term is probably over.
Joe Biden's term is probably over.
Joe Biden's term's over. Yeah, I said it when he gave this speech to Congress. And as always, Cenk's outrageous. No, he's not gonna pass anything. He's gonna pass an incredibly weak infrastructure bill with all the environmental provisions taken out of it. He might pass some sort of voting rights bill that is a shadow of its former self, that has all the anti-corruption stripped out of it, just like I said, and even more than I realized, right? And then nothing after that, nothing. He's given up on everything. Guys, you see, you're making me do it. You're making me do it. Taking out the prescription drug price portion from the budget. What kind of a, look, I'll say it, I don't care, get offended. These Washington elites are so sensitive. What kind of a moron would do that? It's like lowering prescription drug prices is the single most popular thing in the whole country. It probably beats anti-corruption, which is always like around 90%, right? Jesus Christ, how politically negligent do you have to be? Or how in bed with drug companies are you? How much do they own you? Because you cannot be that politically stupid, can you? Who wouldn't lower prescription drug prices? It makes no sense at all. And this is why the Democratic Party and its leadership currently, as it is currently constituted, absolutely sucks at politics.
Well, if they don't get HR 1 or now in the Senate, if they don't get that, passed, Cenk, then the rest of this, Brent. I don't know. I sort of said Brent. I don't even know a Brent. But although, and you would not be a Brent, I don't think. I'm sorry, of all the names I could tag. But honestly, Cenk, I don't see a way that you talk about Biden's term being over. The Democrats are over if you don't get that legislation passed. HR 1 to me is the whole shooting match.
Look, what I predicted in the beginning is unfortunately exactly what we're on track for, which is they will pass half of HR 1 and a super weak infrastructure bill, and that's a maybe. Now that's down to a maybe by the end of the first 2 years, and that is a recipe for disaster. They're gonna take us to a fascist state by their gigantic, unbelievable incompetence and corruption. So FDR my ass, but it is what it is. Let's move on to back to topics that make sense, that are, I was gonna say that make sense, but no, they don't make sense. In fact, the first one, I already.
Let me say one thing about politics, which will be a nice transition because it's not really about politics. But since this is really the only TYT show I do now during the Israeli war in Gaza, there were so many moments where I'd be on Twitter, I'd be reading about it, and again to make this war that cost what number did we hit? 240 Palestinians, something like that, killed 12 Israelis, 240 Palestinians. I was so relieved that I didn't have to talk about it. Like the power of social media is so strong. I mean, I did two things. One, I did a piece on Jon Voight for CBS Sunday Morning a couple weeks ago. And Jon Voight, obviously big Trump supporter. He's a very kind, very likable guy. I like him very much, but he was a big Trump supporter. And I didn't promote it on Twitter because I was afraid of the reaction, and like that's crazy. And then, but I was really relieved that I didn't have to weigh in on this. And it's mostly because I'm scared of what people will say, And I don't even know who I'm scared of more, depending on, I think I know who I'm scared of more. And I just thought, it really is. It's toxic. It's nice not to have to deal with it. I mean, I feel selfish, but it's nice. I mean, it's a time suck, and you get worked up, and you get crazy, angry people who don't have a lot of information coming at you. And I was just pleased. It was so nice. I don't know whether that. I think that's another. You say it's I mean, it's definitely not strong, but it was nice.
No, I hear you, and yeah, that's a perfect issue where you would definitely get yelled at either from either side, or more likely from both sides. And so the folks that support the Israeli right wing, there's nothing you could say other than all Palestinians are terrorists, and if we executed all of them, it would obviously be Hamas's fault and well justified. You would be considered a monster. That's you're in favor of terrorists supporting Hamas, blah, blah, blah. And if you now say, well, look, like one of the things I said on air is that I get why Israel hits the tunnels. They bring the weapons in through the tunnels, right? And of course, people got upset at that, and it violates international law and stuff. It does violate international law, but guys, they're gonna hit the tunnels. I mean, we don't want them hitting the hospitals and the schools and the buildings, but of course they're gonna hit the tunnels, right? So, and then look, and obviously folks will be angry about that. But the good news is, it used to be one-sided. Now, at least people get angry on both sides, right?
Yeah, no, I was thinking
anything you wanted about Palestinians, and nobody would get angry. Now, a lot of people.
What brought this out was this morning I was reading about Bernie Sanders saying, "Yeah, I don't think you should use the apartheid language," right? Mm-hmm. And I thought, oh, he's going to hear it from the left.
Yeah, definitely.
No question, he's going to hear it from the left. And I was like, oh, I'm so glad I don't have to. I'm so glad I'm not expected to chime in on this one.
Yeah, and look, that's actually a perfect example, because until a couple of years ago, like really recently, if you use the word apartheid to describe Israel, you were considered totally out of bounds, perhaps anti-Semitic, on and on and on, right? Now, when Bernie, who's great on this issue and said we should block the arms sale to Israel if they continue their human rights abuses, says he's a little skittish to use the word apartheid, then holy hell rains down from the other side. Yeah. So, I mean, at least on this issue, we could have used some balance, and we've gotten, yes, maybe in some wrong forms and an overly vitriolic, certainly, in this issue, but at least it's way more balanced than it used to be.
Well, the social media part of this issue, to me, that's so obvious, and it really applies across the board on other issues as well, but on this one, it's way obvious, is that people just jump on and they have no sense of the history of the region. They have no sense of the ethnicity of the region. They have no, this goes for backers of both sides of this argument. It is just astounding to me how movements build on such shallow knowledge. It's, remarkably superficial knowledge. So that's what I object to, in addition to it being such a lightning rod for criticism, as you say, is just the fact that the criticism comes with such little in the way of information.
And normally, Mark, as you guys both know, limited information, only being vaguely aware of an issue, that normally has never stopped me. Right? I'm like, I read the nut paragraph in the thing, and I saw the headline, and I found one. I got it. I'm good, right? And I'm pretty solidly versed in the history of the Middle East and in regards to Israel. But I'm with you. Like, there's just there's a big the ramp is open. Anybody can come in and share their opinions.
That's right. We've got plenty of protest signs for everybody, regardless of the side. Right.
Right. Yeah. You pretty much what part of the country this is. Yeah. Right near Europe. Fine. Go ahead. You're an expert. Go ahead. Chime in. Let's go. Let's hear from you. Yeah. So because I read stuff from a lot of people I like, and I was like, oh no, I don't think so. So it's tricky. It's tricky. And by the way, I will say this though, without having heard one word of what you've said about this latest thing, Jack, I will say that I always thought that you were a legit voice of reason on this. It's hard to find. So unless you've lost it in the last couple of years. I would still say the same arguments that you had a couple of years ago, but they probably still apply.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate that. I don't get that often, so I appreciate you saying it. I'm trying to leave the topic, but the one thing I cannot abide is when people tell me they had the such and such land, such and such hundreds of years ago, right, or thousands of years ago. Yeah, how are we making that argument in America? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we're really going to get up and give the country back to the Native Americans? If we're not, can we just end the most obvious hypocrisy that anybody's ever heard of? I mean, right now, technically, the Sioux Nation is supposed to have, and it's actually, I think it's a little bit more than this, but half of North Dakota, half of South Dakota, and like 1/3 of another state that I forgot.
I think it's actually up to them. Yeah.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, exactly. That's right. Any state, yeah, they can take Massachusetts, yeah.
But, I mean, that's exactly right. I mean, we genocidally wiped out those indigenous peoples who are here, Native Americans, and then we made a bunch of treaties that were worthless with those who survived that genocidal craziness, and then we went back on those. But you can use that argument, Cenk, the one which you've just referred. You can use that from both sides. Don't tell me about you were 100 years ago. Now we're playing it today. You can play that. I don't want to hear it from both sides. I see this regrettably is such an intractable issue. I find it immensely frustrating to even discuss it.
We had a school event. I can't tell you the joy I've had in not talking about this. I'm glad it's ironic that I'm the one who brought it up. But we're not really talking about it. We're just talking about not talking about it, which is more fun. So I had some school event, and I haven't seen these parents, and it was all outdoors, and all of a sudden I get hit with can you believe what went on this week? And I was like, and what went on this week? And then it turned out it was this issue, and it was these parents were Jewish and who were talking to me, and they clearly expected me to react a certain way, and I was like, I don't want to talk about it now either, but I can't just say that I'm outraged, right? I can't just say that I can't believe that there's so many anti-Semites in the world, right? So I'm like, how can I do this in 30 seconds and end with kind of a funny thing and walk off, right? And
that's such a Ben move.
Yeah, I don't know if I nailed it, but I would not give them the layup of yeah, boy, it's terrible, it's just horrible and poor. So I hit him with what I'm very always comfortable saying, and I'm like, well, I just like to keep in mind that Benjamin Netanyahu, one of the 50 or 100 worst people in the world, and we should always remember that. That I'm comfortable with.
Well, you didn't find that an opportunity to mention your Jon Voight interview? I thought that would have been maybe the thing to go with. By the way, did you see I interviewed Jon Voight on CBS Sunday Morning. I'm their man in Hollywood. Nothing.
CBS's man in Hollywood, yeah.
CBS's man in Hollywood.
I love it when they say that. Let's go to our man in Hollywood.
Coming up in a couple of weeks, another big one.
Do you want to tell us, or you just?
No, I should probably finish that up. Yeah, I guess I could spoil it here. I don't know if I'm supposed to. It's one of the stars of The Godfather.
Oh wow!
Ooh. Okay. At first, I thought you were going with a conservative theme, and you were going to have Ted Nugent on TCM.
Right, that's right. It's James Woods, Ted Nugent, Scott Baio, right? Kevin Sorbo.
Yeah, Kevin Sorbo.
Now my new favorite,
Chuck
Rick
Woolery.
Schroeder.
Go ahead. Oh, and Rick Schroeder, yeah. Rick
So Rick Schroeder. Yeah, I love him because of the irony that he was in Silver Spoons and thinks maybe he thinks it was real, and so he's probably living off that Silver Spoons money. And how's that for ironic after all these years? And I don't know if you guys saw, he went and did a video in front of a Costco.
Oh, yeah, we saw it.
Yeah, and he's yelling about like, don't go to Costco. And my favorite's the manager's like, all the stores have to have masks.
Right. Yeah.
Like, why are you picking on us? It's so random, right?
Yeah. Come back June 15th. I think you can take your mask off. That's California's plan.
Yeah.
Well, and by the way, that the non-apology, because he got all the blowback that we talk about on social media, he got it, and he did the non-apology apology. I'm sorry if you were offended, but sometimes you offend people when you're trying to stand up for justice or whatever the hell he was, it was But he did say that. Sorry if I offended you, but people do have to be offended when you're trying to stand up for your rights, type thing. So
yeah, he's had such a nice career, actually. I mean, he was in so many good things.
He was more than a kid actor.
Yeah, much more.
He was NYPD Blue, and
he was really good on NYPD Blue, and he was, Lonesome Dove.
That's right.
He delivered. I liked his. I watched that video a couple of times because I liked his glasses, and I was surprised. I was surprised at his choice of eyewear. I thought they were very stylish.
Yeah.
I don't know if they really fit his face. They were a little big, but I thought it was a bold choice for Rick Schroeder.
Yeah. So Ben is our man in Hollywood, and he approved of the video more or less, except for the glasses choice.
So, Mark, we got an audience question for you now that we're live.
Yes, sir.
From the member section, Ditch Mitch Bitch writes in, I need to know if Mark's background is velvet. Looks fancy schmancy, LOL.
I do some magic here on the weekends for the neighborhood kids, so I need a velvet background. This is where a lot of the magician's props and stuff are behind the velvet background. Really, that's All right. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, look, people wanted to know, and
I wanted to tell them.
Yeah. Can I do something that can't work, but it's old school, so who cares if it works?
Sure.
So, because Mark mentioned magic, so when my daughter and I have the same birthday, and back whatever it was about 6 weeks ago when we had our birthdays, we had a magician come to the house, right, and do a little outdoor show. The guy performs at the Magic Castle. He was very good. Did some stuff for the kids. Left glitter all over the yard, right? But that's easy to get up. It's not a big deal. But then he did some magic for the adults, and he did one thing where he took one of the mom's rings, and it ended up inside like a 5 Russian dolls, like sealed up in it. It was amazing. It was amazing. And then he did a thing with me, like he's like, I want a little fake thing as we go, and he goes and he dealt me, and we had the little patter about a fake deck of cards, and he shuffled them, and he's so good with his hands, it looked like he's really shuffling cards, right? And then he goes, I just want you to pick a card, any card. And it's not a real deck, it's nothing there. I'm like playing along, the kids are laughing. He's like, okay, don't tell me what card, but you have a card? You have a card in your head, what it is? Yeah, you do a thing, put it in the deck, but shuffle, and then later, not that much later, he turns away and he has me whisper the card to the other parents. But he's off and it's windy and it's outside. And then he hands me a sealed deck, right? And every card is facing one way except for the Queen of Hearts, which was my card.
Wow,
or the nine of hearts.
Sick.
9 of Hearts. And I mean, because you mentioned the magic thing and it hit me again, and I was like, I didn't talk enough about that. Right, I mean, it was unbelievable. Like how I picked the 9 of Hearts. Like that can't be what people pick. I was trying to be like, just be random, just totally random. 9 of Hearts. Right, this is what I did. Right.
Yeah.
And it was facing the other way. Like what? What is that?
So I learned this magic trick from one of the shows, and probably on Netflix, but who cares? And I did it to my mom, and you flip through a deck, and then you tell her what card she was thinking of, right? And I did it a couple of times. I'm not very good at it, obviously, right? I am training, and I'm like very awkward, like telegraphing the move, the whole thing, right? But it's my mom, so got her, right? And she was so shell shocked because I did it 2 or 3 times, right? She was so shell shocked that I did it, and she's like, "You got to tell me what it was. You got to tell me what it was." And I was like, "I can't believe I actually did a magic trick and it actually worked." No, I'm not going to tell you.
Yeah.
Because I felt so good that I'd done a magic trick. I didn't want to give away my only magic trick. So, right or wrong?
No, I think right. I get it. It's not even that of course they can't get me. What's to give? It's their art. I get it. I mean, I don't even want them to give it away. I mean, I want us to ask and I want them to refuse. I want the whole, back and forth. But I just mean in general, like David Blaine, when she picks a card and then it's in the beer bottle or whatever.
Yeah. Those are always amazing.
Come on,
Yeah.
It's, you know what it is? Here's the thing. It's impossible. It's impossible
well,
that
of course.
happened.
Well, it's funny. My friend's a magician who's worked the castle for many years now, and does incredible stuff. And he's really a performer. So I'll run through, as Ben just has, exactly what the magician did, and I'll go, okay, listen. Here's what happened. He had me just think of a card, and then I run him through, and he said, well, there must be something that you're not remembering. There's some moment that you're not relating to me that was critical in the trick. And I go, no, I'm telling you everything. And he says, well, Mark, I can tell you this. It wasn't magic, okay? so it's kind of what you're saying. I mean, it's just,
right.
It's incredible, but
I got it. But of course, it's not magic. I mean, but and to me, it wouldn't be interesting if it were magic, right?
Sure, right. It was some superpower, right?
Right. The fact is that we know it's not magic that makes it so amazing, right? Because I can't imagine what the thing was. Obviously, that woman's ring. The kid opened the thing, went through 5 Russian dolls, and it was in a little tiny bag, like you get at Tiffany, little velvet thing, like and then the ring was there. It was her ring, like. He was standing in front of us. He didn't excuse himself for a couple of minutes and
right. And he didn't touch it. Right. He didn't
touch it. No,
he didn't open it. He had the little kid open it. Yeah. Let me ask you something else on your trick with the imaginary cards. When you mentioned the card, did you mention it before he opened the deck or before he got the deck out, or did you mention it after he got the deck out?
I think. Mention it to, I don't remember. Right? I'm sure that's a critical piece of information.
Oh, maybe not. Right? No, maybe not. I don't know. I'm just asking. It was the one thing in your description that I was unclear on. So
I
anyway.
Want to.
I love magic. It's awesome.
Yeah, so do I. I love it. I could go to like if you told me I had to go to 2 magic shows a week at the Magic Castle for the rest of my life, if it weren't in Hollywood, I didn't take forever to get there. Yeah, I would love to go. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, from what I understand, 90% of magic is 2 things: misdirection and the power of suggestion, right? And so the funny thing is, I think the Republicans figured it out. Now I'm headed back to politics. I can't help it because the misdirection is like obvious. Anytime. They passed an incredibly effective and popular COVID relief bill. Dr. Seuss books, right? They're gonna ban hamburgers. Misdirection, right? And the power of suggestion. Get a load of this. So new poll out. Usual insanity on what Republicans think. And Ipsos Reuters kind of asked this question to me in a way to get the headline out of it. But bless their hearts, it is what it is, and it's worthy of a headline. They asked Republicans, "Who do you think is the true president right now?" And of course, over 50% said Donald Trump. And they believe with all their hearts that he is the true president. But that is not at all surprising. I actually would have expected the number to be larger, right? But here's the one that I always love diving into Like question number.
Well, I just real quick, Jeff. I mean, so 50% said he was the true president, which means that another 58% believe he was robbed of an election that he won. Right.
Yeah, that number exists.
Right.
So 61% of Republicans said they agree that the election was, quote, stolen. That's 61%. And 56% said that they view the election as, quote, the result of illegal voting or election rigging. So they don't mean it metaphorically. They mean it very, very literally. 56%, the majority of Republicans believe it was physically stolen, like with rigging or fraud. But again, those were not the amazing numbers to me. This one was. 54% believe that the riot on January 6th was led by, quote, violent left-wing protesters trying to make Trump look bad. Okay, so what is that? The power of suggestion. That's it. That's a magic trick. And that is the most impressive magic trick you'll ever see. We all saw them carrying Trump flags. We all saw them with the MAGA hats. We all saw it clear as day, the Q shirts, all that stuff, right?
And many of them have been arrested.
54% of Republicans that believe it was left-wingers.
Well, and go ahead,
Mark. No, the ones who've been arrested have been identified as Trump supporters.
Well, that's the point. They leave their social media histories are replete with examples of their support for Trump. And it's not even, this isn't some superficial kind of situation where, we get a piece of video or a picture of a guy wearing a Trump hat and carrying a, Make America Great Again sign. If you look at that person's social media history over the last couple of years, you see it. I mean, these are dyed in the wool guys that way. Guys generically, obviously.
How do they get, anywhere from 25% to 40% of the country to just not believe in facts anymore? And they did it through their media, Fox News, OAN, Newsmax, Breitbart, etc. They just said it. They just said it enough times where people were like, "That's it, it's over. I'm now an insane person and thrilled with it." So
they also gave them a narrative, which was a hook to hang their devotion to Trump on. So the narrative was you were robbed of this, and so everything that they associate with their tribe and with their identity, they could hang it on that hook. So that, again, a suggestion, but also a suggestion that was, really finely tuned for them to, as I say, just to reinforce their own identity as far as Trump was concerned.
All right, we have less than a minute left we have 30 seconds left. So first of all, we got a whole nother episode where I'm going to ban politics. So for the members, we're just going to do lighter stuff like favorite condiments and what I did inappropriate on Instagram. So tyt.com/join to join us there. In the 10 seconds we have left, what would be a more appropriate name for me? Because Ben mentioned it a little bit earlier. Tony or Jake?
Tony, those are the only two choices?
Yes, 5 seconds left.
This is a controversial answer, Tony.
Agreed, not controversial. It's 3-0, Tony. Okay, tyt.com/join. Members, we'll see you in the bonus episode. All right, thanks for watching this free clip of Old School. Don't forget to become a TYT member today for the rest of the show and for more exclusive content throughout the network. Join now at tyt.com/join.